This week's author is K.M. Rockwood. K.M. has written for most of our seasons on here on Mystery to Die For, and just amazes us with her twists on stories. She's also written the Jesse Damon crime novels and numerous short stories. Check out her website for links to her books. Welcome to Mysteries to Die For. I am TG Wolff, and I'm here with Jack, my piano player and producer. This is a podcast where we combine storytelling with original music to put you at the heart of a mystery. All of our stories are structured to challenge you to beat the detectives to the solution. Jack and I perform these live, front to back, no breaks, no fakes, no retakes. The rules for law and order create the boundaries for civil coexistence, and ideally, the backdrops for individuals, families, and companies to grow and thrive. Breaking these rules puts civil order at risk, and while murder is the big daddy of crimes, codified ordinances across municipal divisions, counties, states, and countries show the nearly endless number of ways there are to create mayhem. This season, we put our detective skills to the test on them. This is Season 8, Anything But Murder. And this is Episode 10, and large-scale theft is our featured murderless crime. This is Graciela's Gifts by K.M. Rockwood.
I hope you guys are liking the sound effect for today.
That's
this
pretty
is called
nice.
Bottle blowing. So you know when you blow on a Coke bottle? Yeah, that's this.
Does it get a different sound if you blow in a Pepsi bottle?
I think so.
Dr. Pepper?
Yeah, well, Dr. Pepper drinkers are just weird people. Yeah, that's why I had to gravitate away from the drink, unfortunately. Yeah, it's a sad thing when, the culture around a drink has to make you stop drinking it because people think you're weird.
I think your brother loves it.
Well, that explains a lot about him. I don't know what to tell you.
You're making me cough. I'm getting over a cough, everyone. It keeps popping up at the absolute worst time. So if
really?
I suddenly go on mute, you know why.
You had a cough in the last episode, but that was 2 whole weeks ago. I mean, that's crazy how you could still have it. We definitely didn't record them back to back.
For anybody who listened, as Jack said, to 2 weeks ago, to The Florida Man Cometh, and you listened all the way to the very end, well, number 1, good for you, you're awesome. And number 2, I gave the name of the next story incorrectly. This is the next story, Graciela's Gifts. And then in 2 weeks after this will be Hoodwinked and Bamboozled. So
what is the name of that? What was that?
Hoodwinked.
Hoodwinked
And Bamboozled.
I thought you said hoodwinked Wow, I can't even say it. Hoodwink. Shut up. All right, I give up. Something about damn instead of and. My point being is you didn't say that. I'm gonna shut up. We're gonna play some music and tell some mysteries.
We're gonna go into Marciela's Gifts.
Yep. Well, not into it because it's a fictional place.
But it's a store, so we could.
But no, because I just said it's a fictional place. That's the whole point.
Maybe the fictional us will go in. Shoplifter's Dream. A shoplifter's dream. Cooper Rayness stood next to Graciela at the entrance to her gift shop, surveying the eclectic merchandise on display. And that, he gestured at the diamond-encrusted figurine of a pug in Graciela's hand, that needs to be locked up in a glass display case. It's the most expensive piece you have. She frowned, but nobody will ever buy it if it's locked away in a display case. Nobody's going to be able to buy it if some shoplifter gets it first, Cooper pointed out. That was very true. The store layout was strategically arranged chaos, designed to expose the shopper to more and more unexpected delights at every turn. Graciela's Gifts and more had started as a small card and gift shop in a mediocre strip mall, with a Chinese takeout on one side and a video rental on the other. The video rental had fallen to the demise of VCRs. The owner tried to move to video games, but he was not successful. Graciela had expanded her shop into the additional space. The neighborhood was changing, gentrifying. Sometimes Graciela longed for a return to her original business, racks of inexpensive greeting cards, rolls of flimsy wrapping paper, balloons and plastic flowers. and her favorite, glass jars of individually wrapped small candies. The neighborhood children would stop in, clutching coins in their grubby hands, gazing at the contents of the jars to make the difficult decision of what to choose. She never sent any of them away empty-handed, even the small ones who occasionally passed over only pennies, still warm from their touch. But some real estate tycoon had recognized the value of the area, close by a metro station. Neglected apartment buildings of the antiquated housing development had been torn down. Expensive apartments and townhouses appeared. The current residents were much more urbane. Children no longer wandered into her shop for candy. Now they were whizzed around in fancy cars and Ubers. Graciela wondered if their feet ever touched the sidewalk at all. Graciela realized that she and her shop were naive and unsophisticated. Should she close her little business and slink away in defeat, or make the changes the new situation demanded? She decided to give it a try. A boutique opened a few doors down, followed by a bridal shop, a day spa/beauty salon, a gourmet takeout, and a high-end jeweler. The strip mall was mediocre no more. It attracted wealthy clientele with money to burn. Graciela kicked up the quality of her merchandise to suit the new customers, and when the Chinese takeout left for cheaper quarters, she expanded into that space too. The store now featured quirky, expensive tchotchkes, costume jewelry whose prices ran into 3 figures, designer handbags, and access to services like customization and engraving. She was amazed at the customers who casually picked up costly trinkets and brought them to the cash register without bothering to check the prices, often without even looking at the receipt they signed. But she catered to them. Her staff, once consisting of herself and her good friend Michelle, now expanded to 5 people. She contracted out some tasks she used to handle herself, like cleaning, payroll, and taxes, and security. Along with the expansion of the business came the expansion of the problems, especially what was called inventory shrinkage. Cooper Reynes ran a highly recommended asset protection company. His services were extolled by members of the local Chamber of Commerce, and Graciela had to wait almost a month after the initial evaluation for him to find time in his schedule to take her on as a client. He was a bit high-handed, but she had to do something. Her losses lately had been astounding. If it kept up like this much longer, she would have to meet defeat and close her business. Whenever a retail outlet contracted with his company, their losses declined to an acceptable level, although it might take a month or 2. A shoplifter's dream, Cooper repeated. All those nooks and crannies, hidden corners. A lot of the stock is small and expensive items, easy to slip into a pocket or a purse. I'd be remiss if I didn't advise you to redesign your displays and make them less susceptible to loss. Graciela pursed her lips. People like to find unexpected treasures around every corner. The type of customer that we've been getting lately has no problem dropping a few $100s on any trinket that catches their eye. I understand that marketing technique. Cooper rocked back on his heels. But you say your losses have been skyrocketing. My job is to help you control them. I can't do that if you won't even consider my recommendations. I am considering them, Graciela said. But I don't think we're talking simple pilferage here. The losses have been huge. I don't see how they could possibly be the result of shoplifting. They can be, Cooper assured her. There are organized groups that target a business. They send in skilled operatives, usually a small group. One person distracts the staff, usually buys something small, while 2 or 3 others snatch anything that looks resellable off the shelves. Graciela had to admit that she'd seen customers lately who took up an inordinate amount of the staff's time for purchases of keychains or refrigerator magnets, while other people roamed around the shop. Sometimes, Cooper went on, they even managed to get someone hired in a targeted store. Just carry stuff out in a purse or a lunchbox at the end of a shift. Have you hired all the new staff like I suggested and had them vetted? Graciela was not about to fire Michelle, who was a friend as well as an employee, and had worked in the shop since it opened. And then there was Raul. Graciela had placed a helped wanted sign in the window, hoping for someone with a strong back to handle the incoming shipments as well as work on the floor. Raul had dressed up, brushed his hair back, and come in with a badly phrased and misspelled note of reference from the manager of the car wash around the corner. He was thrilled to get a, quote, clean job, indoors. She couldn't let him go. Too much of a blow to his already fragile self-confidence. He was courteous to everyone and a hard worker with a compulsive streak. Given a free minute, he could be found straightening shelves and dusting displays. Could he also be a thief? Oh, she hoped not. She turned to Cooper. Remember when I first talked to you? Even before you could stop in, you told me to go through an employment agency. You gave me the name of one. I use them for my new hires. My employees are all bonded. All your employees? Cooper asked. Her silence answered him. He shrugged. It's up to you. I'll do a bit more digging around on the street, see if any of my contacts had heard whispers of this place being a soft touch. In the meantime, give serious thought to putting at least your most valuable items in locked cases, starting with that little dog statue. I'll think about it. Graciela turned away. We do need a way to keep a better eye on merchandise out on the floor. How about some of those convex mirrors so you can see the blind spots? They might help, you said, but only if your staff isn't distracted. He glanced toward the service desk. Graciela still pondered. Still? Okay, Cooper threw his hands up. I'll bring in a few when I come to finish up installing the cameras and the monitors for the new surveillance system. I'll have to come back to activate everything. It's much better than the one you've been using. That old one overwrites every 24 hours. Unless you notice something right away, it's no help. And the new one? She asked. How long before it overwrites? Can it save to cloud storage or something? Left alone, he said, it overwrites in a week. And the cloud is too hackable. Cooper pulled out his phone. But I'll come in every few days to download the recording so we have a permanent record. And I'll give them a quick once-over to see if I catch anything. Cooper's fees were by the hour. Graciela winced at the expense of paying him for such frequent visits. Couldn't I do some of that myself? Review the security footage and download to storage? Cooper shook his head. Not a good idea. Easy to mess stuff up or erase it accidentally. Although I could get you a more expensive system that pretty much anyone can operate, if you're interested. The system was expensive enough, and Cooper had installed it without mentioning other options. She hated to think about removing it and replacing it, even with the more costly one. About that inventory, she started to say. Sorry, Cooper turned his attention to his phone. I've got to go. Another appointment. Take care of that inventory and just leave the rest to me. I'll be in after hours to take care of hooking up the new system. He gave a dismissive wave and left. Graciela, still clutching the little pug, completed her sentence. We finished it last night. I have a list of some things that went missing. But she was talking to herself. Graciela had no intention of leaving, quote, the rest to Cooper, even if he did have a great track record. Sighing, she crossed to the dog-themed display and made room in the pug section for the little guy in her hand. Sooner or later, a browsing customer would come upon it and decide it would make the perfect birthday present for her dear Aunt Moira, who loved pugs, and not even blink at the steep price. That was the kind of client she had now. If no one stole it before it happened. Missing merchandise. The morning shift staff arrived. Graciela greeted them and went into her small office. She opened the safe and handed out the cash drawers. Then she closed the office door and watched her employees on the monitor screens of the old surveillance system as they prepared for the day. Jocelyn and Raul. Graciela had hired Jocelyn, along with Livy, through Cooper's recommended employment agency. Raul carried a mammoth lunchbox. Jocelyn carried a huge purse slung over her shoulder. Both were big enough that any number of small valuable items could be secreted in them and carried out at the end of the shift, right under Graciela's nose. Putting that thought out of her mind, she picked up the inventory records she and Michelle, her oldest and most trusted employee, had completed late last night. It had taken several evenings after closing time. In exchange for the extra hours, Graciela had agreed to let Michelle have a few paid days off to visit her sister, who was undergoing cancer treatment. Of course, she would have let Michelle take the time anyway, but this way the absent didn't eat into Michelle's paid time off. The results of the inventory were grim. Graciela knew she had suffered serious losses since the last inventory, but it was laid out in front of her. Even she was shocked by the results. Dozens of items were unaccounted for. In some cases, entire cartons of expensive knickknacks, purses, and scarves were missing. Much of the missing merchandise, while not particularly common, was indistinguishable from that sold at similar stores nationwide, with no hope of ever tracing them. But a few items, which she had picked up at yard sales or second-hand shops, were unique and could be identified. The bronze Eiffel Tower, incongruously topped with the rhinestone-studded Celtic cross. The man who sold it at the flea market told her he soldered the Celtic cross on himself, making a unique gift for his Irish-French wife, now ex-wife. The ring, shaped like a large lotus flower with the date inscribed inside, was another item. Then there was a small painting of a rather hideous spotted hog with the artist's name in the corner. Sometimes she had photos of the objects and went on her computer to look online for similar pieces on resale sites. But right now, she was exhausted from the late nights, and other tasks needed her attention, like payroll. She pulled a business card from her desk drawer. It had the name and phone number of Officer Bronkin with the local police force. He had been assigned to investigate the sudden surge in retail theft in the area, but when he stopped by and introduced himself, Graciela had been less than impressed. He made no secret that he was retiring soon, and while Graciela knew he'd go through the motions, she didn't think he was invested in this task. Still, she had nothing to lose. She picked up the phone and called the number on the card, straight to voicemail, which then announced the mailbox was full. Not ready to give up quite so easily, she called the police station and asked for Officer Bronkin. "Oh, he's not in," the person answering said. "I'll give him the message. He'll probably stop by your shop." Or not, Graciela thought. But he did arrive late afternoon. "They said you have a list of missing merchandise? And pictures?" She handed him the list, pointing out the unique items. "Thank you," he said. "First step is to circulate this to pawn shops, see if anything turns up." She felt a ray of hope. "Is that likely?" "Well, not particularly, but it has been known to happen." He glanced around her displays. "Not exactly the most secure way of displaying your merchandise. More like a shoplifter's dream." Graciela bristled. Just what Cooper said. "We're upgrading the camera. Maybe that will help." "Maybe," he agreed. "You'll review the video footage on a regular basis?" "Oh, Cooper Reynes will come in and do that," Graciela told him. "He knows what to look for." "Cooper himself?" Officer Bronkin frowned. "He's got a lot of clients. Don't know how much time he could devote to reviewing one store's videos. Busy man." "I know." Graciela straightened up the papers on her desk. "I had to wait a good 2 months before he could even start here. All the places I've checked with said he gets good results pretty fast, though." "That's true. Things got a lot better a few months after he starts. Mostly deterrence. Somehow we never catch the main culprits." Officer Bronkin turned to go, but paused. "Do you have a camera out by the dumpster?" "In the alley? I certainly don't. But the landlord might." She thought for a few seconds. "Our back door has an alarm on it. We'd hear it if someone snuck out that way." "Maybe not snuck," Bronkin said. "Can't the staff shut off the alarm if they go out? One trick is for somebody to put a carton of merchandise on top of the trash in the dumpster. A buddy comes by, usually at night, and picks it up. That'd have to be an inside job, Graciela mused. Yep, it would. I'll look into this, Officer Bronkin waved the list, but don't get your hopes up. He certainly didn't seem to be trying to solve the spat of thefts. The unwelcome thought that perhaps he actually had something to do with it, or at least took money to look the other way, came to Graciela's mind. No way to tell. The late nights left Graciela exhausted. Tonight she planned to cover the supper breaks and then head home, leaving her staff to lock up. But she was haunted by Officer Bronkin's suggestion that entire boxes could be left by the dumpster for someone to pick up. That was the second suggestion that an employee might be involved. Graciela called the mall's management office. The person who answered was supremely uninterested. You'll have to check with the custodian about that. Not sure who that is, though. Graciela knew. Noel Stillman, she said. Yeah, that sounds right. Anything else? But she hung up before Graciela could respond. Noah didn't come in until the stores were closing. Rubbing her eyes, Graciela pulled out the paperwork she'd been neglecting in favor of the inventory. Payroll took priority. It was due the payroll service by 11 o'clock to be processed overnight. The checks would be delivered in the morning. Her eyes were heavy and she found herself making stupid mistakes, but she corrected them and finished. Michelle and Livy came in for the late shift. Turning her attention to the grainy images on the outdated surveillance system Cooper had yet to replace, Graciela watched as Jocelyn and Raoul gathered their belongings. Jocelyn's purse didn't seem to be any fuller than when she'd come in, and Raoul swung his lunchbox in a wide arc. Would he do that if there was anything valuable in it? Certainly not if he had anything fragile. Livy carried a small, plump bag, but some tiny, expensive pieces of jewelry could easily fit in it. Michelle had an entire suitcase. Can I keep this in the office, she asked. I'm leaving right from work to catch the night bus to my sister's. The suitcase could hold a lot. But this was Michelle. Paychecks won't come in until tomorrow morning, Graciela warned. Michelle tended to live paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes she borrowed $20 until payday, but she always paid it back. It's okay. I'm good, Michelle said. My sister has a treatment tomorrow and I'd like to go with her. They seem to be working, but her medical bills are sky high and the insurance is a mess. I'm going to try to straighten everything out. What we really need, besides the cancer to go away, is a serious influx of cash. Sick sister, a need for cash, big suitcase. Graciela tried to stop her thoughts from roaming in that direction. She hated how she was becoming suspicious of everyone. Business was steady all afternoon. Supper time came and Graciela went to give her staff their break. At least the payroll had been sent, and the inventory was in the computer. Michelle grabbed her purse and announced that she was going to the coffee shop a few doors down for supper. Not like her, Graciela mused, to spend her hard-earned money on purchases at an upscale coffee shop. But after working late on the inventory, she had to be tired. She wouldn't get much rest on the nighttime bus. Livy was assisting a customer who was purchasing a silver plaque featuring a soldier in combat gear saluting a waving flag. Would it be a suitable gift for a sister whose son joined the military instead of going to college? An honorable, if inexplicable, career path. Could it be engraved with the name and date and be available in time for boot camp graduation? A pair of teenage girls came in, giggling. They removed various items from the shelves, examined them, giggled more, and replaced them. Graciela tried to keep an eye on them, but soon was busy with two people checking out. When she got a moment to look around, one of the teenagers was approaching with the keychain in her hand. A smiling pug dangled from the keychain. Graciela looked over toward the display with the pug items, including the bejeweled figurine. The other girl remained at the shelves, continuing her routine of removing items, examining them, and replacing them. The teenager with the keychain paid for it in cash. Taking a deep breath, Graciela wondered whether this was an example of one person distracting the staff while the partners spirited merchandise away. With the cash sale, there would be no trace of the identity of the girls. She couldn't accuse a customer of shoplifting with no more reason than someone had made a small purchase with cash, while her partner continued to look around. As soon as they left, Graciela dashed over to the pug display. The little jeweled figurine was not in its place. Graciela felt her jaw tighten. She moved a few items that had been bunched up behind a "Beware, watch pug on duty" sign. There it was. Not gone, just moved. On the shelf was a gaudy purple wallet covered in spangles. Definitely not the type of accessory this store carried. Graciela picked it up and looked inside. A few 20s and an appointment card for the spa next door, but no identification. She put the wallet under the counter and wrote a note to let everybody know where it was, in case the girl came back looking for it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know who did it. I know you might be thinking, Jack, that's crazy. And some of you might be thinking, well, Jack, I know too. Isn't it obvious? And I know what we're all thinking. Okay, I have to go to the bathroom. But that's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. I know who did it. But I will save it towards the end, for I would not want to spoil this whole story for you. Instead, you'd just be reading it, listening, going, but I know the killer, and thus you would never care. I guess there isn't a killer. That's the whole point of this season. Wow, I'm really not on it today, am I?
It's anything but murder.
There hasn't been murder in like 10 episodes.
You know what this story does have?
Bananas.
And paranoia.
And pugs.
And pugs. There's a lot of pugs, but yeah,
Sounds like it.
I think if I was Graciela, I would start getting paranoid too.
I would, but notice the one person she hasn't gotten paranoid of.
Herself?
Remember that? No, it's not that. That'd be a great twist, but it makes no sense. But no, but think, dear listeners, think. All right. Have fun. I'll talk to you later.
We're going on with Trashed. When closing time finally came, Graciela took a quick look at the transactions from the day, decided there was no hurry to balance everything right now, and shook herself fully awake to go looking for Noah. He was responsible for the exterior of the buildings, the parking lot, and the alley. Several of the businesses had arranged for him to handle their cleaning needs, but they complained about his work. Graciela's staff saw to the general dusting of the delicate displays and sweeping the complex floor arrangement. She hired an outside contractor to handle the weekly tasks of cleaning the floor, windows, and restrooms. The cleaning crew was due tonight, but they might show up anywhere between now and 8 in the morning. Noah had a key to get into all the businesses in case of emergencies. Thus, he had total access to her shop. He would have no problem moving entire cartons from the storeroom, and it seemed as if entire cartons were disappearing. He'd been the custodian here since before Graciela had opened her store. The, quote, inventory shrinkage, the large-scale theft, was a recent phenomenon. Until fairly recently, though, the store had not carried many items that would make it worth stealing. She found Noah in the spacious janitor's closet at one end of the building. Noah showed her a corner with several monitors. He flipped among the views. The images were clear. A glaring floodlight illuminated pebbles and bits of trash on the asphalt by the dumpster. To Graciela's surprise, the setup appeared identical to the one that sat in her office, waiting to be hooked up. "Is this a new system?" she asked. "Did you get it from Cooper Rainus?" Noah shrugged. "It's pretty new, and I think they did get it from that guy. He could sell salt to a sailor. I like the old one better, but you do get really sharp images on this one." Graciela peered at the array of buttons, knobs, and switches on the control panel. "Is it hard to use?" "Nah, much easier than it looks." Noah flipped through a couple of switches, changing the image from the front parking lot to the back alley. Or you can watch a few at once. He fiddled with the control and the screen divided into 4 smaller images. "Can you review previous footage?" she asked. "Sure, like this." Noah hit some keys on the panel. The live images on the screen switched to a blurred, rushing backwards. Graciela peered at the controls. "Do you think I could use it?" Noah scratched his chin through his unshaven whiskers. "Yeah?" Can I accidentally erase recordings? She asked. Oh, no. Noah pushed a control and the image stopped. Erasing stuff is kind of complicated. You have to override some safety features. It does do an automatic record over once a week, but I just download the whole week's worth to the computer before that happens. Graciela was confused. Cooper told me I might erase the recordings if I fooled with it. Noah emitted a harsh, barking sound. It was a laugh. Yeah, that's Cooper all right. He wants you to pay him to come in and review your stuff, which he may or may not actually do. He told the management that, but he doesn't show up all that often. Didn't tell nobody, but I figured out how it works, so I can look for things myself. Perturbed, but grateful for this information, Graciela settled into the rickety chair in front of the monitors. She sped through the video showing the dumpster, slowing it down whenever someone approached it. Staff from the gourmet takeout hauled a few bags of garbage out. 2 bags spilt open when they were heaved over the side. One of the beauticians from the hair salon carried out a large wastebasket and dumped its loose contents. Bits of hair and scraps of paper rose in a cloud and then settled back into the dumpster. A disheveled man peered into the dumpster and removed 2 small bags. He opened them, rummaged through them, shoved some of the contents into his mouth, put some more in a ripped takeout container, returned the bags to the dumpster, and left. Toward the end of his shift, Raul carted out a bag of trash. Then he carted out a big, undamaged carton. The carton was clean, but its top was taped shut. The supplier's logo was very easily read: expensive purses, belts, and scarves. Raul placed it carefully on top of the other contents of the dumpster, shoving it up into a front corner. A cold lump formed in Graciela's chest. She was fond of Raul. He was young and promising. Tedious tasks like checking shipments against the packing slip didn't bother him, and he always was happy to lend a hand with any heavy lifting. She liked to think that the situation was mutually agreeable, with him getting some retail experience and earning a reasonable wage. Was he supplementing that with stolen merchandise? A few more incidents caught her attention, and she slowed down to watch them. But she saw nothing else suspicious. No one had come by to pick up the carton, yet. It should still be there. Grabbing her keys and a box cutter, Graciela went out to check. The light over the dumpster glared. A fitful breeze swirled a noxious mixture of scents around the dumpster. It was open, the top leaning back against the wall. She had to get up on her tiptoes to peer inside. And there was the carton Raul had left, still upright, still taped shut. Graciela tried to remember when it had arrived. A few days ago. Raul had unpacked it, checked against the enclosed invoice, brought some of the merchandise to the displays on the floor, and stored the rest. Or so she thought. Grimly, she grabbed the carton and pulled. It caught on the edge of the dumpster. She lost her grip and the carton tumbled down among the assorted garbage. If she wanted to get the carton, she'd have to climb to the top and reach in. Looking down at her tidy white slacks and ballet flats on her feet, the contents of the dumpster smelled terrible. The carton might be smeared with heaven only knew what kind of slop, organic or chemical. Did she really want to reach in there? She did. The contents of that carton could be worth several $1,000s. If her stock was leaving like this, it was no wonder her inventory shrinkage was so outrageous. Bracing herself on the rough corner of the dumpster, she managed to scramble to the top. The contents looked as disgusting as they smelled. Perched on the edge, she swung her feet into the dumpster and balanced herself. There was the carton, just beyond her reach. She tried to nudge it toward the corner with her foot, but it caught on something. Holding on with one hand, she leaned into the dumpster and slipped. She was knee-deep in ripped bags of restaurant leavings, almost empty bottles of chemical-smelling beauty products, and wadded-up paper wipes. A cloud of dust and hair clippings eddied around her, caught by the breeze. At least she could reach the carton. Would it be too heavy for her to heave over the side? It wasn't. In fact, it was surprisingly light. Scarves? Once she hoisted it onto the ground outside, Graciela braced her feet on the corner of the dumpster and scrambled over the side, trying not to breathe. Her skin crawled as she looked at her pants and her shoes, which were wet and sticky. She wanted to go home, take a shower, and put on clean clothes or pajamas. But first she had to find out what was in the carton. Using the box cutter, she sliced the tape. Trash, which she had apparently knocked out into the alley, spun in a sudden gust of wind. She leaned over the carton and pulled back the flaps to view the contents. A shower of white bits burst from the carton into her face and scattered with the wind. Packing peanuts. The carton contained packing peanuts and nothing else. Ever tidy, Raoul had put them in a carton, taped it shut so none of the peanuts would escape to make a mess, and discarded it in the dumpster. Well, the peanuts had certainly escaped now, and made a huge mess. Annoyed with herself, but relieved that Raoul had been exonerated, Graciela did her best to shove the peanuts back into the carton and close the top. It did not go well. The previously reasonable, well-swept alley was now awash in used paper towels, hair clippings, and packing peanuts. She made a few futile attempts to gather the trash and put it into the dumpster, but she made no noticeable headway. With a sigh, she went to find Noah, who was emptying the trash cans on the sidewalk in front of the stores. How could she tell him about the disaster in the alley? He peered at her stained pants and shoes. Find what you were looking for? Not really. Graciela wondered if she smelled as bad to him as she did to herself, but I'm afraid I made a bit of a mess in the alley. Is that so? Noah finished putting a new bag in the trash can. She cleared her throat. Yes, I'm sorry. Guess I'll have to clean it up. Noah lifted the full bag of trash and whirled it, closing it with a twist tie. Graciela gave Noah a generous tip at Christmas, but this deserves something right now. Thank you, she said, as she took out her wallet from her pants pocket and put a 20 out of it, handing it to Noah. Noah took the bill and slipped it into his own pocket. Sure thing. You need anything else, just let me know. Hidden Corners. With Michelle visiting her sister, Graciela needed to pick up her shift. She got just a few hours of sleep and felt totally drained when she showed up the next morning, just at opening time. She clutched a huge take-up cup of coffee and managed to slosh on her shoes as she unlocked the door. She pulled the cash drawers out as Livy turned on the lights, straightened the counter, and flipped the sign on the front door from "Sorry, closed" to "Welcome, open." Cooper had apparently been in. Lights on the control panel of the new surveillance system now glowed, and a low hum rose from the monitor. When Graciela returned to the counter, she saw with satisfaction that a number of convex mirrors let her see into several previously hidden corners and nooks. Not, however, the section with the dog merchandise. Perhaps she could talk to Cooper about making some adjustments. Where did all of these early customers come from? They were kept busy until about 11, when George from the bookkeeping contractor came in with the paychecks. You know, you really ought to get these direct deposited. Nobody pays by paper checks anymore. I do, she said, thinking of Raoul, who talked about opening a bank account but hadn't done so yet, and Michelle, who usually dashed out to the bank at her lunch hour to cash her check. Positively Stone Age, and not particularly secure. George glanced around. I need to get something for my sister-in-law's birthday, a gag gift or something. I'll look around. He sidled off into a maze of displays. Just as Graciela hoped all of her customers would. We have some lovely gifts, she called after him. Just let us know if you'd like some help. She handed Livy her check and went to the others and put the others in the office safe. The phone rang, and she was delayed by a call from an exclusive designer per supplier, informing her that a shipment would not be arriving as originally scheduled. When she got back to the counter, George was checking out. He had 2 inexpensive tin plaques. Both had illustrations of black pugs. One said, "Pug Hug," and the other said, "These premises patrolled by a guard pug." My sister-in-law has a black pug, George said. Most pug stuff has those tan ones. She'll love these. Raoul came in for his shift, carting his big lunchbox. He wasn't supposed to start for another 15 minutes, but he frowned at the disorganized clutter that had accumulated under the counter during the busy morning. He put his lunchbox in the back and proceeded to sort everything out. Feeling like she had a minute for the first time today, Graciela went to check on the pug figurine. It wasn't there. Although she hadn't fully processed the receipts from the day before, she surely would have noticed if such a large purchase had been made. Wouldn't she? Raul pulled out the clutter that had accumulated under the counter during the busy morning. He laid it on the shelf behind them and started sorting. Pens, scraps of paper, small boxes and bags, 2 rolls of cash register receipt tape. No purple spangled wallet. "Did somebody come by last night for that wallet?" she asked, "while I was in the back office?" Raul smoothed the receipt somebody had left behind. "Yeah, this girl. She said she left it on the shelf when she'd been earlier, but it wasn't there now. I gave it to her. Was that okay?" "Oh, of course." Graciela thought for a few seconds. "Any unusually big purchases last night?" "Yeah." Raul aligned the pens carefully in their little basket. "That big brass dragon incense burner? Some guy bought that and hauled it off." While she was delighted to hear that dragon had been around for almost a year, and she was afraid it was one of those unfortunate purchasing mistakes, that wasn't what she had meant. "Any really expensive items?" "No." Raul put the basket with pens back under the counter. "Just the dragon and regular stuff." Since Graciela wasn't ready to eliminate anyone for her suspect list, she didn't specifically ask about the missing pug. Back in the office, she looked at the old surveillance system Cooper had replaced. The components hadn't yet been discarded. They sat on the table against the back wall. If the system had been disconnected during the night, it couldn't have overwritten yesterday's recordings. She plugged it in and switched it on. After fooling around with the cables, trying to remember where they'd been attached, she finally got an image on the monitor. It was grainy and showed 4 separate images, one from each of the 4 cameras. One image caught a distorted view of the display with the pugs in the far corner. She wanted to zoom in on it, but every time she tried, the screen went blank. All 4 images showed at once. It was hard to concentrate on only one small view, but she did her best. She fast-forwarded until she saw the giggling girls, since she knew the pug was still there when they had left, then settled down to watch. Just over an hour later, Raul stepped into the frame. He carried a box of scarves and belts. Putting the box down, he moved an antique coat rack over. He fussed with the items already displayed, rearranging them and adding new merchandise. When he packed up what was left and removed the box, the rack now obscured the corner where the pug sat on the shelf. Had that been deliberate? Gloomily, she slowed down to watch the activity in the area. An older couple stopped to look at the shelves. One of the teenage girls appeared, not giggling, and spent some time rummaging around. A young man looked furtively over his shoulder, stood with his back to the camera, and then walked away. After the supper breaks, there was a lull. Livy worked the late shift, came along with a feather duster, and dabbed delicately at the shelves. A few additional people wandered into view, but left without seeming to spend any time around the display. Just before closing, Livy emptied a trash can into a box, closed the box up, and hauled it out the back door. Odd. Usually they left trash for Raul to handle the next time he came in. Graciela switched off the system. What now? She pulled up a resale site on her computer. The chances of finding the pug was minuscule, but she had to try. Of course, it was not there. She tried a few other things and she could not believe her eyes. There was the Eiffel Tower with the Celtic cross. The seller wanted $75 to buy it now. $75 was a lot of money, but this was the first time Graciela had actually traced a piece of her stolen merchandise. How much information would the seller have to reveal if Graciela ordered it? If she did, she obviously couldn't use the store account or address. Quickly, she entered a friend's address and arranged for a money transfer from her personal account, using her initials instead of her first name. The transaction seemed to go through. Officer Bronkin might not know how to decipher any information that might help find the culprit, or at least the seller. assuming, of course, that Officer Bronkin himself was not part of the problem. From disinterest to bribery to active either participation in the scheme. She called the number on the card. He actually answered. Might be able to figure something out. I'm working late tonight and I'm nearby. Okay if I come now? Yes. Tired as she was, Graciela had to stay. She could take a look at Noah's surveillance and see if anyone picked up the box Livy had tossed in the dumpster, although she certainly had not been careful with it if it contained anything valuable. When he arrived, Graciela pulled up the resale site with the Eiffel Tower on the computer. Can't tell a whole lot from that, Officer Bronkin said. The company that runs it will want a subpoena before they'll divulge any information. Even if we manage to get one, no guarantee a judge will grant one based on the picture of something for sale on the internet. It might take a few days. The shipping info is maybe a better bet, if you get it. Graciela told him about the missing pug. It's unique, she said. Well, maybe not one of a kind, but there can't be too many. I took a photo of it and made copies. She opened a desk drawer and pulled it out. He took the picture and studied it. No idea exactly when it disappeared? Sometime yesterday, or after we closed, she said. After you closed? He looked up at her. Who was in after you closed? Well, the cleaning crew, she counted on her fingers. Cooper Rainus was in to finish installing the new system, and of course Noah, the custodian, has a key. Did you check the dumpster lately? Officer Bronkin asked. I did check once. I almost thought we were onto something. There was a carton on top, taped shut. I had to climb into the dumpster to get it. She wrinkled her nose. When I opened it, it was full of packing peanuts. They got blown all over the alley. And yesterday... Her voice trailed off. Officer Bronkin folded the picture and slipped it into his pocket. And yesterday what? Was reporting Livy and the trash snitching on her? Graciela didn't see how it could be interpreted that way. Well, one of my staff emptied a trash can into a box and carted it out back, where the dumpster is. He raised his eyebrows. Doesn't your staff empty the trash regularly? She smiled. Well, Raul takes care of that. He's kind of obsessive. He's going to empty the trash when he comes in, no matter how little is in the can, so we usually leave it for him. Officer Bronkin got to his feet. Could it still be out there? No. Graciela stood up too. It was yesterday, and the truck came to empty the dumpster early this morning. Well, he said, let's see if we can get that custodian to show us the video. He turned to the door. I'm sure he'll let us look, Graciela told him. He showed me how it worked. Noah let them into the spacious janitor's closet. You remember how it works? He asked Graciela. Yes, she said, thank you. He looked hopeful, and she gave him another 20. They settled down to watch, slowing the recording down every time there was any action around the dumpster. Garbage bags from the gourmet takeout, the same ragged man pulling a few things from those bags and stuffing them in his mouth, then finding a plastic bag and filling it with more discarded items. Someone from the beauty salon carting a bulging garbage bag. Livy, sliding out the back door with her box. She balanced it on the edge, gave it a shove, and watched it slip in. On the monitor, darkness fell, and the light flickered on. Long intervals with nothing. A fat raccoon who managed to climb up the corner and disappear inside. A few minutes later, he scurried out again, something in his mouth, and slipped into the night. Then, a person of indeterminate gender, with a hoodie pulled over the head, strolled up to the dumpster and peered in. Officer Bronkin slowed the recording down to a crawl as the person glanced around, looking directly at the camera for a brief second, and then took a box out of the dumpster.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for me to reveal the killer? Not the killer, darn it. I'm not good at this. The thifter.
The theft. All right. Do you want me to go through the usual stuff?
Of course. Just for the listeners, not that I need it, because of course I already know who did it.
All right, so Graciela doesn't know who to trust as she tries to suss out who is behind the large-scale theft.
Yes.
Lucky for her, she has all of us.
Unfortunately for her, she has me.
Here is everyone currently on her do not trust list in the order that we met them.
It's a long list.
It is a long list. Cooper Reynes, security expert, hired to stop Graciela's inventory losses.
His name kind of sounds like Cooper Anus. Especially if you blur the R's together, Cooper Reynes.
Cooper Reynes.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress.
Michelle, Graciela's friend and first employee, she needs money to help her sister with medical bills.
Uh-huh.
We have Raul, Graciela's second employee. He works hard to keep the store neat.
He's a good guy. He didn't do it.
Then we have Jocelyn, a recent hire, and she came from Cooper's recommended agency.
Indeed.
As did Livy, another recent hire, also from the agency.
Yup.
There is Officer Bronkin investigating similar thefts at other stores.
Uh-huh.
Noah, the custodian for the strip mall, who has access to all the stores.
Indeed.
And the giggling girl customer who left her wallet among the pugs.
Unfortunate teenagers.
All right, so here are the facts swirling in Graciela's mind. Cooper Reynes, two separate words, was recommended by the Chamber of Commerce for his success in reducing thefts.
Uh-huh.
He upgrades his client's security, personally viewing the footage for problems.
And he did it.
Prompted to do an inventory, Graciela and Michelle found significant merchandise loss, including whole cartons of purses and scarves.
Interesting that they both found it.
Michelle and Raul were with Graciela long before the problem started. Still, they both bring bags to work, able to smuggle out product, and tend to live paycheck to paycheck.
They did not do it. Hold on, Jack. Don't get ahead of yourself.
Jocelyn and Livy are newer employees, hired through a service Cooper recommended.
Yep, poor Jocelyn.
Officer Bronkin is working the case, but without much progress. He turns Graciela onto a trick of moving stolen goods using the trash dumpsters.
Crazy.
Raul always takes out the trash. He was meticulous like that. Graciela inspected one of the suspicious boxes. Maybe I should slow down how fast I'm talking. Graciela inspected one suspicious box, but found only packing peanuts.
Interesting.
She found one of her stolen unique pieces, an Eiffel Tower with a Celtic cross, on an online retail site.
Uh-huh.
Graciela's most expensive piece, a diamond accented pug, went missing during the previous day, including after hours. She does not suspect the cleaning crew. The others with after-hours access were Cooper and Noah.
And that's how Cooper did it.
Noah showed Graciela how to view the security footage, countering Cooper's argument that it was difficult and you could overwrite footage.
More proof that it was Cooper.
The recent footage showed Livy taking out trash.
And that's where the fun part comes in.
All right. So who is ruining the party at Graciela's Gifts and More?
It's good old Koopy Boop. So let's go through all the suspects. Raul didn't do it. He's just a good guy. You know, he's meticulous. The dude, you know, he's fine. He's in the clear. Michelle wouldn't have told Graciela about needing more money if she had done it. It's a weird thing to do. Now, the biggest hint that we're given is that, what's the officer's name? Brocken?
Yes,
Brocken. Brocken said that, you know, Cooper installs a lot of these things. You know, the theft rate goes down, but they never catch the main suspect, you know? You know why? Because Cooper's the main suspect, or he's working with the main suspect. Okay, so he might be working with a bunch of hoodlums who come in and, you know, take a bunch of stuff, make these companies need this extra security. So they bring in Cooper, he gets paid even more, and then, like, suddenly all the thefts start to taper off. Well, it's because all of the artificial thefts that he's bringing in to happen no longer happen, and only the natural thefts continue to occur. And, you know, that's already a pretty small rate. Now, Livy's an interesting part. You see, Cooper asked them to use this special hiring site that he uses, meaning he has the ability to plant people within the company, which of course was his idea, saying that perhaps it's people who were used outside of this, or it's people that were hired in. But then he protects his own, saying, well, it couldn't have been the people using, you know, his recommended site, probably other people. So there's a chance it's Livy. That depends if there's one or two culprits, and I just don't know. But it's definitely Cooper, and it might be Livy. I don't know if it's Livy. I don't think it's Noah. He's a good guy. He probably wouldn't have taught her how to use the surveillance equipment if he had done it. Like, that doesn't make sense. Don't teach your enemy, not really enemy, but don't teach the guy you're stealing from how to catch you, you know? So
Right.
if it is Noah, that was a weird thing he did. So I think it was good old Koopy Poop. And he decided to nab one last thing before he installed the whatchamacallit.
All right.
Yeah.
So Jack has locked in early on Cooper Rainus
And maybe Livy.
and maybe Livy.
I don't know.
All right. Well, before we go into the big reveal, I want to remind everybody that the print companion to this season is out. It's divided in two, so from episode 1 through episode 12, which will drop in June, that is in Larceny and Lies. You can find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, everywhere you get your ebooks. And then if you're a paperback print lover, check it out on Amazon. Wow, my tongue is just like in a bucket full of nuts today.
Bucket full of nuts.
A
That's
bucket
an
full of
interesting
nuts
place to
today.
leave your tongue.
A bucket full of knots. Salty knots. All right, Fox guarding the hen house. Graciela could hardly believe her eyes. Cooper Rainus. The video inched forward. Cooper opened the box. He lifted out a designer purse, then a jewelry box, and finally, the pug figurine, its diamonds winking in the floodlight. A few days later, Officer Bronkin sat in Graciela's office, stirring an obscene amount of sugar into a cup of coffee. I suspected Cooper Rainus was behind most of these thefts, but I couldn't prove it, and Livy worked at some of those places, briefly. You could have told me your suspicions, Graciela said resentfully. Well, no, I really couldn't. He gave the coffee a final, vigorous stir. I couldn't compromise the investigation, and suppose I was wrong. I couldn't stop people from hiring a contractor who was, in fact, producing results. Well, of course he was producing results, Graciela scowled. He set up the thefts in the first place. Then he hired himself out to provide his services at an outrageous fee. His, quote, proven results came because he backed off the scheme once he had a business totally convinced that he and he alone could prevent most of the thefts. True that. Officer Bronkin took a sip from his coffee. He tried to control access to his overpriced surveillance systems by saying they were too complex for most people to operate. Then he charged to come in and monitor them himself, which he sometimes did. But he sometimes didn't, Graciela noted. Noah taught himself how to work the whole system. Officer Bronkin laughed. I talked to Noah. He's pretty technologically astute. When he realized Cooper wasn't coming in as often as he was supposed to, Noah took it upon himself to take care of the system. He didn't want to get into trouble, and he didn't think through the implication of what that might mean. So Cooper wasn't aware of how much Noah could do, Graciela wondered. Right. Officer Bronkin peered into his coffee cup. He had no idea that Noah could operate the system, much less that he would let you watch the recordings. And Livy, Graciela smiled sadly. I hired her through an employment agency. She was bonded. And who recommended this employment agency? Officer Bronkin asked. Cooper got one of the job placement specialists to send some of his cronies on the job. Livy had worked for 3 other retail establishments that had similar losses. But she was bonded, Graciela said. How could they do that? And will I be able to get some of my losses back from the bonding agency? Good questions. He put his cup down on her desk. But I'm afraid the guy who sent her didn't really contact the bonding agency. He made up a fake certificate and gave it to you. So there's really nowhere to go for any reimbursement. Graciela eyed the cup, which teetered next to a pile of paperwork. How about Jocelyn? Officer Bronkin shrugged. Jocelyn wasn't involved, and she really was bonded. Well, what happens next? Graciela asked. Well, Cooper has a good lawyer, he said. Probably gets some kind of plea deal, although given the extent of the harm to so many small businesses in the community, I don't think he'll get away without any prison time. Livy? I don't know. Graciela had another question. How about the Eiffel Tower? It hasn't come yet. Well, we can check when you get it. He grabbed for his coffee cup and missed. The coffee spilled over the desktop. Sorry about that. He swiped at it with his sleeve. But I bet that was a one-off, some kid swiping it for laughs. Taking that was a real risk. It's big and not worth all that much. Any chance of getting any money back from Cooper? Graciela wondered. Officer Bronkin shook his head. Cooper will probably be ordered to repay or to pay restitution, but whatever assets he has will go to legal fees. The judge can order all the restitution in the world, but that doesn't mean you can collect. Will I get my merchandise back? Graciela wondered. Yeah, Officer Bronkin shrugged. When they don't need to hold it as evidence, but it'll take a while. Can I sue civilly? She asked. He looked tired. You can bring a civil suit against Cooper and his company, even have the court order to pay your attorney. But your attorney won't work unless you pay up front, and the chances of getting reimbursed are between slim and none. I'm afraid that's the way it usually goes. You can't get blood from a stone. But maybe, Graciela thought, she could eventually get money from a diamond-encrusted pug. The end.
What a terrible ending. You're never going to get any of your merchandise. You might get some merchandise back. You're never getting any of your money back. Not the stuff you paid the company. Not the stuff that he stole from you. Nothing.
But don't you think that's like KM style? Like, she inserts reality.
She does love
seldom true happily ever afters.
Yeah.
You might get to live.
But that's it.
But not happily ever after.
Oh, well, at least you won't get thefted from anymore.
So you want to learn a little bit about large-scale theft?
Of course I do.
So it is also known as organized retail crime. And as you saw in our story, it's the theft of large quantities of products from retailers with the purpose of selling the products. So where shoplifting is committed by individuals for personal use, large-scale theft is a highly organized big business. According to the National Retail Federation, retail losses in 2022 totaled $112 billion, with theft accounting for roughly 65% of that. From the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement comes the story of two Houston brothers who, from June 2015 through March 2018, acted as fences for an estimated $30 million in retail goods. Yasser Salah Awad and his brother Bilal Salah Awad and other conspirators pled guilty to charges of conspiracy to transport stolen merchandise. Awad was sentenced to 41 months in a federal prison plus 3 years supervised release. He was ordered to forfeit $260,000 from his bank accounts, representing proceeds, pay $109,742 in restitution to CVS Health and Walgreens, and a fine of over $4.6 million. Awad also received 41 months, had to forfeit $460,000, plus about $6,000 in stolen merchandise. He had to pay $322,550 to CVS Health and Walgreens, and he was fined over $4.4 million. So links to these stories is in the show notes. But yes, this was a very large-scale front where goods were transported out of the stores and then put back on an open market at a much discounted rate. So, yeah, I have to say that this was a peek behind the curtain for me. You certainly see people being very worried about theft, but I really thought it was more shoplifters. This is a totally different scale. No comment?
Sorry, I zoned out, and I figured it'd be hard to sit up and turn my mic back on. Well, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
I feel like the amount they had to pay did not equal the amount that they stole. And also, the crazy part is they owed like $100,000 to $300,000 to Walgreens and CVS, and they had to pay $4 million in fines. Where was the $4 million going? Not back to the
Victims.
Victims?
I don't know. I don't know enough about how that works. I've always wondered things like that.
I just think it'd be funny because if it just went to the government, isn't that a great deal for the government? I see. You stole from you. Okay, as punishment, give me the money.
That is a really good way to do it.
That's great, isn't it? We should live by that model, guys.
That's funny.
Someone should turn that into a mystery. I guess you could kind of count it as like bribery if you decided to make it illegal. You could say like the police officer. If you made it a story, of course, you could say the police officer was the government aspect of you stole from you, so pay me, as punishment.
Mm.
But no, that's a great business model.
For somebody.
Yeah, for the government. All right, back to the show.
Let us introduce you to our friend, Cam Rockwood. She draws on a varied background for her stories, among them working as a laborer in a steel fabrication plant, operating glass melters, and related equipment in a fiberglass manufacturing facility, and supervising an inmate work crew in a large, medium security state prison. These jobs, as well as her work as a special education teacher in an alternative high school and a GED teacher in a county detention facility, provide most of the background for her novels and short stories. So with that, we will wrap up this episode of Mystery to Die For. Support our show by subscribing, telling a mystery lover about us, and giving us a 5-star review. Check out our website, m2d4podcast.com, for links to this season's authors. Mysteries to Die For is hosted by TG and Jack Wolff. Graciela's Gifts was written by Cam Rockwood. Music and production are by Jack Wolff. Episode art is by TG Wolff. Join us next week for a Toe Tag, which is a first chapter from a fresh release in the mystery, crime, or thriller genre, and then come back in 2 weeks for our next original story, where an intellectual espionage is the featured murderless crime. It's Hoodwinked and Bamboozled by me, TG Wolff. All right, Jack, take us out.